All right, we are live for another Travel Tip Tuesday. And today, my guest is Bex Eaton. And she is going to be visiting or talking with us today about living and traveling abroad. Now, this is something that I truly love. I love traveling abroad. I've done quite a bit of it, but she's done even more, which I'm excited to talk about today. But she has lived in so many different countries and just really gotten to experience the world. So I'm really looking forward to delving in and talking with her about that. So thanks so much for joining us today, Bex.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yes, of course. And it's, so funny how we met actually. We met through Instagram. And I think that it's crazy how connected this whole world is nowadays, especially due to COVID, because it's now connected people even further. And I feel like so many people meet on social media and we just we connect and we find something that we have in common and we have travel in common. So I'm glad that you were able to come on and tell us a little bit about your journey, and people on here can learn from it.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a massive travel community right now online, and it's nice to be a part of it. Like, even though you may be traveling alone, like if you think about it, you're never actually really alone, because there's such a huge community of travelers online that you can easily. I could reach out to you now if I wanted to and say, "Oh, can I come stay with you in the States?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." It's great.
Absolutely. It is. It's so crazy how connected you could become with people, and it's like we've met online now, but when you find that connectivity, when you have something in common with someone, it's like you automatically feel like just connected to them, and you're like, oh, you want to share those experiences, and you want to get to know them better, know their story, and just like what they've gone through to get to where they are today. So before we get into everything about traveling alone, but traveling in general and living abroad, I want you to tell everyone where you're from, where you're at right now, and how you got started traveling.
Okay, so I am from the UK originally, and that is where I am back right now. Although I'm originally from a bit further up north, near Nottingham. Now I'm back, and now I'm down south on like the southeast coast. Because I kind of fancied a bit of a change when I came home because of COVID, so I decided to move in with my dad rather than go back home to my mum. Because obviously I've been traveling for so long that I don't really have a base. I was living in New Zealand, and then obviously COVID hit, so I've come back to live with my parents for a little bit. So that's the life of a traveller sometimes, unfortunately. I'm okay with that.
No, absolutely. So what got you started traveling? So I know that the culture of traveling is a lot different in Europe, but just what kind of gained that passion for you?
Um, I just wanted something different, and I don't know if it's been the same for you, or I'm sure some people can relate. You just get into like a rut. Like I remember being 19, working. Well, actually, no, I lied. I was 8. I didn't go to university. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a massive passion for a certain career. I did well at school. I got into university, and I was going to do business economics because I enjoyed economics, and business is always good. But I didn't really have that desire to go. I just applied because that's what everyone was doing. That seemed like the normal thing to do. So I got in, and I deferred my offer for a year. So I'm going to take a year out, and I'm going to really decide if I want to be spending 9 grand a year on the tuition fees for this course that I'm not even sure if I want to use it or not. Yeah, so then I took a year out, and I moved to a different part of the UK called Bath. Again, my dad was living there. It's quite nice having separated parents. I could live in different parts of the UK. He was living there at the time, so I moved across to Bath, lovely city, and I actually got a job, like a management I got onto a management training scheme out of school. I thought, that's quite a cool thing to get onto, a bit of experience rather than uni. It's kind of business related. I'll do that for the year. So I did that, passed the training, and became a full-time manager in a supermarket. But I was working like 70 hours a week and getting paid for 35, 40 hours. So, and at the age of 18, 19, like, even though I was getting paid a decent wage for my age, like, when you broke it down to how many hours I was working, the hourly wage was awful, like really terrible. And I was there, like, always tired, stressed out, like. And at 19 years old, I was like, is this what I want my life? Is this my life now? But I also didn't want to go to uni because the course that I was doing, I really didn't actually want to do it.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed earning and having money and being able to do things for myself and to live, not be on like a student wage or anything. So I knew that I didn't want to go to uni. Plus, I met a boyfriend, and I've got like a life for myself now that I was working. And I decided I didn't want to go to uni, but I also just didn't want to be 19 years old working 70 hours a week and having nothing to show for it. So I did a couple of courses. I became a personal trainer because I'm really into fitness, and I really enjoyed doing that course. But there was something missing. There was something just not. I needed more. So then when I did my personal training course, someone actually came in to talk about how you could become a personal trainer working on a cruise ship. And I was like, that sounds like a bit of me. I could travel the world. I had a couple of friends on a cruise ship that were dancers, and I was like, they seem to be having a good time. I could turn my, career or my qualification into an income and travel at the same time. So I went for it. I got the job, but then at the time I had a boyfriend, and we basically came to the conclusion that we would break up if I went on this cruise ship. And when you're like 19 years old and they think you think they're the absolute love of your life and you can't live without them. And so then I was like, well, I don't know what to do because I want to travel, but I don't want to. And he kind of basically just said, what is it about travel that you want to do? Is it that you want to work on cruise ships? I said, no, I just want to leave. I need to get out of here. This place is not good for my mental health. Like, I'm just not in a good place. And he said, well, I've got a couple of friends in Canada. Why don't we go there? And I went, yeah, sure. I don't care. I'm going. I'll go anywhere.
Okay.
So I literally, I don't care where I go. I want to do something. So we luckily managed to get, because the visas for Canada for Brits, we get working holiday visas for like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, a couple of other countries. But Canada's the hardest one to get just because it's got a longer process. But luckily we managed to get through quite easily. So it took us a few months to apply for everything, and that was it. I left.
So that's when you went to Canada?
Yeah.
With him?
I declined the cruise ship offer.
Okay.
Initially, moved to Canada and did 2 years living in Whistler in BC.
Wow. So then you were in Canada for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then what happened first of all, let's talk about that. So how was Canada? How different was that?
It's the best place in the world. I love it. It's my favorite place ever. It's so amazing. And I think the reason I love it so much, one because it is just fantastic, but also I moved there. I just turned 20. Like I've been on trips, by myself. Like before then, like I've been to the US by myself to see a friend over there. I've been, to different countries with my boyfriend. I hadn't just done family travel. I'd done, travel by myself and with my friends.
Yeah.
But it was my first time actually physically leaving the UK with a one-way ticket and not knowing when I was really going to come back. So yeah, I was 20 years old, and like my first time moving away from my parents, even though I left my mum to go live with my dad, that was my first time fully just doing something completely out of my comfort zone, completely different, completely exciting, but also terrifying at the same time.
Absolutely.
And obviously compared to the UK, Canada is so different. Like there's insane mountains, there's complete changes of weather from 35 degrees in the summer to minus 35 in the winter. There's bears, there's cougars, there's you name it. It's completely different to the UK. We get squirrels. So, so it's a completely different lifestyle, and it just blew me away. Like it just ticked every single box in terms of me, getting out of that mindset rut, that like low mindset that I was in. It completely changed that, and it made me appreciate life because there was so much to appreciate there. Everyone was so positive. Everyone there was just there for a good time, like everyone loved their life. Whereas in the UK, that wasn't the case.
No, absolutely. And, I completely get that too, because I've lived in Florida my entire life. And so I had that same, like, I needed to leave, I needed to get out of there. And I was actually trying to purchase a home in 2017. And I found like the perfect house and everything like that. And then it ended up not working out, something outside of my control. And I was devastated. And I was just like, I was kind of got into like this little rut, just like you were saying, like, where I was just like, nothing felt like it was going my way. And I was like, well, if nothing's going to go my way, I kind of like had a fuck it moment and was like, you know what? I'm just going to go travel Europe. Like I called my best friend up and I was like, you want to backpack Europe like next summer when I graduate from college? And she's like, yeah, let's do it. So we like planned it and just went and like did a whole backpacking trip. And it was like the most amazing thing to just take, like to just leave where you are and just like on a whim just go and like see somewhere new and just experience so much more than like what you've ever experienced before, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. Like I think in a way, even though you were devastated that you didn't get that house, like there was a reason you didn't get it. Like now that
Absolutely.
you look back, there was a reason you didn't get that house, and the reason is because now you've gone traveling, it's completely changed your life. But if you had got that house, you probably never would have gone. So at the time, it
Exactly.
probably seems like the worst thing in the world, but when you look back, it's actually the right thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I wouldn't even be doing this right now if it
Exactly.
weren't for that. Like it's insane. And that's happened to me so many different times throughout my life in the last 5 years, pretty much. All of these bad things tend to keep happening, like bad things, and then they end up being for the best. And
Yeah.
they end up being even like things that come from it become even better. And I was like, wow, like, but you could never expect that. But now I've just come to like, if something bad happens, I just automatically, I'm like, something better is coming. Like that's
Yeah.
how I have to think,
Yeah.
because it's time and time again proven. So I mean, look at COVID right now. Like COVID happened, and I feel like for a lot of people, I mean, obviously it's not a good situation to be in. Like COVID isn't a fun situation, but I feel like it's given a lot of people time and just time pretty much to reflect on themselves, realize like what's important to you.
Take the
A
break.
lot of the whole yeah the just the whole world had to go on quarantine, right? And we all had like this extra time to just like sit and like really feel like think whether we were thinking forward or not, because I'm always like go 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 and I'm like always trying to think of the next thing. So it gave me a second to breathe and just be like, okay, well, what do I actually want to do with this? Like what do I actually want to do in my life? Like what's important to me, and what do I want to spend time and energy on? Especially because I feel like it made so many people realize like how short life really can be. Because like so many people were, just dying off of this disease that nobody knew was going to happen. Like this is a worldwide pandemic, and nothing exactly like this has ever happened before. So I think that it's really changed a lot of people's perspective on a lot of things, and given people that time and energy to be able to just truly do what they enjoy. I mean, I know here in the US, a lot of people have started to do more domestic travel because that's kind of what they're allowed to do right now. We're not, as Americans, we're not really allowed to leave to go to a lot of different countries unless we're going to quarantine for like 2 weeks, which at that point we don't have any more vacation time. But domestic travel has become a bigger thing here, and I think that that's really a good thing. I think that we should be exploring our country more, but just traveling in general, because people feel like they were stuck in their homes for so long that they were like, okay, I need to get out. How do I get out? Like, let's go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, you were living in Canada for 2 years. And then where was the next point after that?
So
Where'd you go?
after Canada, so yeah, I did 2 years, and then my visa ran out. Because we get the working holiday visas where you get a certain amount of time, and you can sometimes extend them. Which the plan was originally to extend it because I loved it there. And the boyfriend that I moved there with, we were going to extend it together. Then we ended up having a horrific breakup that we'll
Oh,
just pass by that. But again, one of those things that works out for the best, because
yep.
I'm at the way better point of my life now. But yeah, we ended up breaking up 6 months before basically our visas expired.
Yeah.
And I was basically he was in a better position than me to get like a fast track visa to get extended. So I was going to sort of go on his as like a partnership thing. Then obviously everything fell through because we broke up. So I ended up being like, you know what, I don't really want to stay in the same place as him just because of everything that sort of has happened. And also there was a lot more world out there. Like I believe this happened for a reason. I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna see what else is available. So I had the last 6 months in Canada single, and I had the best time. It was great because it's so different traveling like with by yourself and with somebody. You meet more people when you're by yourself. I feel like you put yourself out there more, and you go out more and you just do more things. I found anyway. And I grew as a person because even though I'd traveled alone, I hadn't like physically, lived in another country. But when I moved to Canada, I had my boyfriend there, so it was my first time really being by myself. So
Yeah.
I really grew as a person, and I look back now and I think that was the turning point in my life for me to really, to really grow and become who I am. But anyway, so my visa ran out. So I did a bit of traveling around Canada. Like I did a big road trip from the west all the way across to the east, and then popped to Iceland on the way home because I was like, you know what, Canada to the UK, might as well stay in Iceland on the way. It's part of the journey, right? So then came back to the UK with no money, no job, quite miserable actually. Came home and just moved back in with my mum for a little bit. Managed to find a job, worked like 60 plus hours a week, like ridiculous hours, just to save to go traveling again. Then I ended up. Then I decided I was like, you know what, I'm going to see if I can reapply for that cruise ship job because I never went for it in the first place. They
Yeah.
kept emailing me saying that they needed people, and I still have my qualifications and stuff. So I reapplied and I got in, and I decided to spend Christmas at home because I hadn't been home for Christmas in a couple of years. So I spent Christmas at home, and in the January of 2018, I think it was, I left to go work on a cruise ship.
Oh, nice. So then you were on a cruise ship for how long?
4 months.
And how was that?
Yeah, mixed. I've got mixed opinions. I'm not gonna lie.
No, please don't.
The cruise ship experience was cool. Like, being on a ship, being at sea, living on a boat was really, really cool. You could walk out onto the decking and just stare into the ocean and stare into these beautiful sunsets. And sometimes the ocean would be like glass and it would just be so magnificent and there'd be amazing stuff. A really cool experience. But working on a cruise ship as a personal trainer personally wasn't that great. It was I love sales. I think everything you do in life is sales, but I felt like my personal training job of helping people became so focused on sales for the company that I work with to make money that my passion completely disappeared. I was working 14 hours a day, so I was exhausted all the time. Because half that time, like 5 or 6 hours of that, I was doing physical exercise. So I was exhausted all the time.
Yeah,
And
sure.
even though I was doing physical exercise, like doing classes and stuff, I didn't really have time to really work out the way I wanted to on myself. And then I had to balance trying to fit a social life in around that as well, because obviously I didn't go on the cruise ship to just fully work. I tried to make friends and stuff, but a lot of people, to go to the crew area to drink or to hang out and talk or whatever, people didn't finish until 11 p.m. and I started working the next morning at 7 a.m. and I had a 14-hour. So yeah, it was a lot of work. And then when it comes to getting off the ship, you have to wait for all the customers to get off before you can get off, and that sometimes you're not getting off the ship until 11, 12 o'clock, and you got to be back on board by 3 o'clock sometimes, 3, 4 o'clock. So you get very limited travel time in each place, and the food that the crew get is completely different to what the customers get. Like we get quite a limited selection. It's very obviously the customers get like this massive buffet and all that, and whereas we get a lot of a smaller selection. And I'm vegetarian, so that's quite hard. And also, with being into fitness, I felt myself just eating pasta because a lot of this food was quite spicy because a lot of the food is cooked by people from countries where spice is quite a normal thing to eat.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm not a spice fan at all. So yeah, there was quite a lot of things.
Me either.
Plus, obviously, you share a cabin. Not everyone shares a cabin, but most people do, unless you're like more of a senior or something. You share a cabin, which was fine because my first cabin mate was amazing because we were in training together. But my second cabin mate, I didn't really get along with as well, and we just had a different way of doing things. And you're in such a close confinement, and you have to get cabin inspections, and it was a lot more regimented than I expected.
Yeah.
And I think because I've been in Canada for 2 years previously, I had all this freedom and all this exploring and weekends of camping and whatever I was doing, to only be able to be off the ship for 4 or 5 hours a day in certain ports was very limiting, and I didn't. It didn't really fulfill what I thought it was going to fulfill, to be honest. But then saying that, some people get absolutely addicted to being at sea, and some people absolutely love it. There's different ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. How many countries did you end up going to on that cruise ship?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8.
8? Was that mainly in Europe?
No, it was Australia, Vanuatu, Fiji, New Caledonia, Singapore, Thailand.
Okay.
Actually, 7. Sorry.
So all over there.
So yeah, all the South Pacific, which was really cool because that was somewhere that. So when I actually got back from Canada, I debated moving to Australia because I had met a lot of friends in Canada from Australia, and I wanted the warm climate. As much as I loved Canada in the winter because it's really fun with all the snow.
Yeah.
Minus 30 degrees is not the one for me. Absolutely not. I don't like being cold. So yeah, I wanted to go to Australia and do the summer, but then I got offered the job on the cruise ship, and they sent me to Australia. So I thought, oh great, I'll kill two birds with one stone. But I didn't really see all that much of Australia because again, you get limited time off.
Yeah, that's true. So then after the cruise ship, where did you, I know that you said you've lived in New Zealand. Was that right after?
Yeah. So then my contract was meant to be 9 months. So people get different contracts depending on what they do. Some people get 4-month contracts, some people get 6. Mine was literally the longest possible contract, like 9 months. So after 4 months, I'm not even halfway through yet. Like I can't do this. Like it's not something that I want to carry on. So I decided to take it early. I quit basically. So if you quit, then the company don't pay for your flights home. But if you stay for your whole contract, then they'll pay for your flights there and back on the ship basically. Okay. I knew I didn't want to go home because I had in my mind that I was going to be away for at least another 5 months, if not, longer. I wasn't ready to go back home, but I wasn't prepared to stay on the ship. So I debated moving to Australia again, but I had a really close friend that I'd actually met in Canada. Like she was like my best friend in Canada, and she was living in New Zealand at the time. And it just made sense in terms of money and having somewhere to live and having a really friendly face. I felt a bit lonely. Like it just made sense for me to move to
after being on the cruise ship.
Yeah. So it just made sense for me to move to New Zealand, and because the Wi-Fi is quite limited on the cruise ship, I couldn't even apply for any of my visa. Like she applied for everything for me. I sort of like sent her all my details when I was in port one day. She applied for my visa for me and texted me, and then she texted me saying your visa's come through. So then I booked a flight that night. I got off the ship in Singapore, which is like our home. So our first home port was Sydney. We did a couple of months around Sydney, doing like Fiji and the Vanuatu and that. And then we travelled up the east coast of Australia to Singapore, and then Singapore's our home port. And we went around like Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore. So I got off the ship in Singapore the next time we docked there with my bags. Spent 2 nights in Singapore just so I could see the city properly, see it at night time and stuff. Got on a flight to New Zealand via Sydney. I thought I'd go back to Sydney again, see it at night time. So on the ship, I only saw it for 3 hours in a day. I spent 2 nights in Sydney again just so I could go to Bondi, do the Harbour Bridge, the Harbour Bridge climb at night, and just see the city for more than 2 hours. And then flew to Queenstown, New Zealand, which is where I spent a year and a half after that.
Wow, that's incredible. I hear New Zealand is like God's country, just like it's like insane.
It's a really cool country. It's hard because when I first moved there, I did do a lot of comparing to Canada, just because my really good friend from Canada was there. I met in Canada. It is very similar to Canada. Like Queenstown and Whistler are basically. If you've been to Whistler, you've probably been to Queenstown. If you've been to Queenstown, you've probably been to Whistler. They're both ski towns. They're both biking towns. The same kind of people go through them. So I did do a little bit of comparing, which I shouldn't have done because they're both so different and they're both so good in their own way. But yeah, it's an amazing country. So it's one of those countries where it's got so much to see that you literally have to spend at least 2 months there.
Wow.
The countries that some countries you go to and it's kind of like you go to a certain place. You go to like a certain place in that country and that's kind of it. Like you don't really explore the rest of it. Whereas New Zealand, like you've got a bazillion things to see in North Island and the South Island. It's crazy how one country can be so beautiful.
Absolutely. No, and I totally get that. I feel like a lot of people, especially like people when they go to Europe, like when they're like, oh, go to Paris or go to London or go to Barcelona, like when they think of, I mean, it's the same thing when people come to the US too. Like when they think of Florida, they think of Miami, or they think of New York, they think of New York City. And it's like funny, but I always try to encourage people to go outside of that. Like I feel like there's so much more to countries than those big name cities. Like I went to Paris. I went to all of those like big cities just to say that I went there and like to say, okay, like, of course, let's see what the hype is about. And they were beautiful, but I feel like so much of the culture is lost in them as well, because they're trying to be what the whole world wants them to be. Like, Paris is, supposed to just be like the Eiffel Tower and like, the Louvre and just all of these big, things, which it was absolutely beautiful. And I mean, the Louvre was incredible. And like I did like the Eiffel Tower. But I mean, I only spent like a day and a half there, and like the rest of my time in France was in like Marseille and like Montpellier, and like I went to some like other small cities, and like when I went to those cities, it was like just so much different. Like you get to meet such a different like aspect of the country, and I feel like a lot of people lose that when they travel as well if they don't go to those smaller cities. So New Zealand, when you think of New Zealand, I don't think that there's like one city that comes to mind. So like you would automatically like feel like, oh, like what should I be, you know, doing when I go to
my first trip to the US, I went to Evansville in Indiana, which is exactly right. Everyone's like, why did you go there? I had a friend from the UK who was on an exchange. So she, in her first year at university, she did an exchange. Because I didn't go to university and I got that job, I had this money, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go see my friend in the US, and I've never been to the US before. So yeah, my first trip to the US was Evansville, Indiana. And to be fair, like it was awesome because I had this US college experience, just like it is in the movies, but it wasn't in a big US town. It was literally just an everyday US college and an everyday US town with everyday US, citizens, rather than it being something like you see in the movie. It was like the movies, but it wasn't like, you know what I mean?
I feel like it'd be less like the movies if you went to those big places.
yeah. So and it was just a cool experience to actually get. And I've been to like Cody in Wyoming, which has a population of like 15 people.
15?
Well, I'm not quite sure how many, but it's tiny. Like, honestly, it had the town had like the teeniest little grocery store and a gas station. That was it. I drove through it in like 3 seconds.
There are a lot of cities like that. The city that I'm from is actually really small. I mean, it's getting larger now because Florida is becoming such a popular place for people to just move like from all areas of the US. They're like all migrating to Florida.
Florida, everyone's down here.
Yeah, it's like, but and I'm like trying to get out every second that I can, which is funny because I'm in Colorado right now, and like they're all like dying in the heat over there, and I'm like, it's like supposed to snow, but I have like a curse when it comes to snow. Like snow does not happen. Like it was supposed to snow today, and like it turned into freezing rain rather than snow, and I'm like, thanks Colorado, like appreciate you.
Too early to snow. It's only September. Far too early.
It's dropped 60 degrees in the last day, like in the last like 24 hours.
I'm not playing out there, but no, sorry, see you later.
No, I want it because I haven't had it. Like I'm like, please give me snow. I want to break my curse, but like that's not happening.
Like today in the UK, it got to like 22 degrees, which is an average summer's day for us. But it had been like for the past week, it's been like 15. It dropped down to like, because I'm in quite a nice part, like quite a sunny part of the UK, like quite a warm part. Like up north, it's normally always cold. We've had quite a decent summer, but the past week's been a bit chilly. Like I've been getting my like jackets out, but today was 22 degrees. Like I'm going outside, it's sunny again, yay!
And for those, because in the US, you guys use Celsius over there, and we use Fahrenheit, and I'm pretty sure like 22 is like around like what? Isn't that the 70s? Like I think it's 70s.
Probably even like 68. It's really not that. Not that warm. Well, but for the UK, it's warm.
If you think that that's warm, like Florida right now is like 97, like we're just like 37 or something.
I love the heat though. I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, no, I'm over it. I was like born in that, and I'm like over it. Yeah. So, how many? I don't know if we went over it on this, but how many countries have you actually been to?
I want to say 37, but as we were speaking before, not actually really sure because I think I've counted some islands as countries, and actually they're not really countries because they're part of the mainland. So I'm gonna say 37, but it could be more like 32.
Okay, so. And I know I hate this question when people ask me, but maybe I'll word it like this. What's your top 3 countries? Doesn't have to be in particular order. Or if you do have an order.
Canada, all the way. Number 1.
What was the first one?
Canada.
Oh, Canada. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because where you spent? Do you think that's because you spent the most time there?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I just when you go somewhere and you just feel like you're at home.
Mm-hmm.
It just fills me with absolute joy. I just love it. So Canada. I love the US actually, to be fair. My dream place to live is California. Even though I love Canada, I love Canada like the most in terms of feeling like home. The change in temperature is something that I don't think I'll be able to deal with. So California, with it being pretty much the same temperature all year round, if you go a bit more southern, it's sunny most of the time. It's got mountains, it's got beaches, and it kind of ticks all my boxes, to be honest. So yeah, the US, I love the US. Again, it's just got so much to see. You've got everything. You've got skiing mountains, you've got desert, you've got beach. You've got everything in one country.
Yeah.
And then
especially in California. I haven't even been to California yet. Florida doesn't have that. California's like got mountains and desert, like you were just saying. They got the redwoods. There's such a long. They just have like everything in that one state. I'm like, how does this even exist?
I know, I love it. It's the best place ever. And then number 3 would probably be New Zealand. Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, it's hard because I love Thailand, I love Singapore. Vanuatu actually blew me away, but in terms of I'd probably say because I've seen a lot more of New Zealand, and every part of that I saw that I loved.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think time really, like the more time you actually spend somewhere, the more you actually get to understand and like engage with the culture a lot more. Because I mean, my top 3 in no particular order are Scotland, Germany, and Czech Republic.
Yeah,
so like when I love Scotland. Oh gosh. And
I was there 2 weeks ago. It was so good.
Oh God, the Highlands. Oh, I can just get lost. When I look back at the pictures, I'm just like,
we actually had sunbathing weather in Scotland. I was there from the 10th of August until the 22nd of August, basically, or 23rd. Yeah, and we had for the first like week and a half, it was so warm. We had sunbathing weather, and then the last few days of the trip rained, but it blew me away. I was like, what? This is Scotland? What's going on? So nice.
Yeah, no, when I went there, well, again, I told you I have a curse when it comes to snow. So I just tend to bring Florida wherever I go, like with the heat. And when I went to Europe in 2018 for that summer, it was like the hottest summer in 100 years. And I was like, cool.
I was in New Zealand for that winter, and I was like, why am I in New Zealand? And it's -7 degrees, when in Europe and the UK it's 37 degrees. What am I doing here?
What am I doing with my life?
I was so upset.
That's funny. Yeah, no, but Scotland was amazing. But I had like a whole week in Scotland on my trip. And then in Czech Republic, I had about a month, or probably, about a month rounded up, because I did a study abroad program actually in Prague and in Hong Kong. I know that's like a outlier in that, but big difference. Way culture shock. It was kind of insane. But there was 3 weeks that we were in Prague studying, and then the 1 week in Hong Kong. And then when we went, me and my best friend went on our backpacking trip after I had graduated, because that like study abroad was like at the end of my degree. We did our backpacking trip to 10 different countries in Europe, and I was like, we have to add on like Czech Republic. Like you have to see Prague. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts. We have to make time for it. So we spent some more time there when we were on our trip, and it was absolutely like, the same thing. Like every place that I went there, like all the little cities, all of the little, just absolutely ingrained in culture, and just the architecture there. Oh gosh, it was just so amazing.
Yeah,
in Germany,
I really want to go to Prague. I'm really want to go there for the Christmas markets. It's been on my list for ages. I was hoping things. Obviously, I had to come home from my travels. I was like, maybe I could go to Prague this Christmas. If we can travel by then. But now obviously it's been pushing back, and everything's been pushed back. So I don't think it's looking like we'll be able to go. I mean, hopefully, if the borders open and everything's good, then I'll be able to go to Prague this Christmas. But it's not looking likely. But I'll get there.
Well, you'll have a better chance than any of us over here in the U.S. Because you guys, they're letting a lot more of the countries in your contiguous, well, you're not contiguous to the Europe, but you know what I mean.
Well, so they open them, but then they close them again.
Yeah. How have things been over there for COVID for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're all sort of in the same situation in terms of, I think with you guys, like, we still have masks everywhere, and there's all the social distancing in place. I think people are starting to get a little bit fed up with it now, and there's definitely been a lot more people not sticking to the guidelines, which is I think always going to happen in a way. I mean, it shouldn't be, it's going to. And then they've been opening borders for a country, or opening the borders and allowing us to go to a lot of countries without quarantining. But then some people have gone to those countries, and then they've changed the rules, and then they've got stuck. Either they've come back and they've had to quarantine for 2 weeks. But obviously, with them having jobs and everything, it's been a bit of a tricky situation, because they've gone to Spain, for example, because they had a holiday booked. They've been in Spain for a week out of their 2-week holiday. The government's then announced that they have to quarantine when they get back, and they're like, well, I've got a job to get back to. So yeah, I've kind of just been advising really against, just because it's been so uncertain. I've been advising on domestic travel.
Yeah, absolutely, within your country. Yeah. So what do you think was the most difficult thing about living abroad, like outside of your own country?
I think in a way, just like not I don't, this sounds really bad, and I love my family to pieces. I didn't really miss them. I didn't really miss them in terms of, I did miss them for sure, but not really. Like, I quite like the independence. I quite like living away. And people have said to me, do you miss your family? I was like, not really, because I know that they're there, and I know that I can talk to them online. The thing that was the hardest though was when something did happen at home, I couldn't just go back. Like, it wasn't like I could just drive home, or or if there was an event going on, or a birthday, or whatever it may be, or a loss in the family, for example, I couldn't just easily be there. That's probably the hardest thing, is that you are, when those sort of things do happen, you realize how far away you actually are, because you kind of forget how far away you are, because obviously with having social media and everything, you seem so close. And then when something like that happens, and you're like, oh, I'm actually in New Zealand, I'm actually a 35-hour flight away. Like when I had to fly home because of COVID, it was really, really difficult, because I had to fly through at least 2 countries. And I was like, well, all these countries are closing their borders, and I have to fly through at least 2 of them to get home, because they're so far away. So that was probably the hardest part, in terms of, when something does happen, you realize how far away you actually are.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. So what was your favorite thing?
Favorite thing? Just experiencing, like, there's so much out there, things that you could never, like, well, obviously depending on where you're from. If you're from New Zealand, then you can experience it. But from being from the UK, like, the UK is a great country, don't get me wrong, it's a cool place to visit, it's got a lot of history, but a lot of it is the same. I mean, there's some cities that are a bit different, like Bath's a really nice city, but in terms of what it has to offer, there's not that much variety. Obviously, Scotland's a really nice area as well. I'm going to Ireland at the end of the month, Northern Ireland, so I haven't been there yet. So we have got a bit of mountain and everything, but we don't really have a huge difference in landscape, or a huge difference in So I think when you stick to your own country, you don't really realize what is actually out there. But when you do go traveling, the best thing about it, in my opinion, is just experiencing other cultures and experiencing what the world has to offer, and like just having that jaw-dropping experience when you're literally looking at a view and you think, how on earth is this real? You're literally you're completely speechless, and your whole body just feels like, I can't even explain it, and you're just there, and you feel like crying, because you're literally so overwhelmed with joy because of how amazing it is. That's the best feeling.
Absolutely. No, I completely I've had so many of those moments, especially like when traveling to even cities in Europe. Like, I was never really into history when I was younger. In school, like, it was all right. Like, I always did pretty well in school, but like, I never was like, oh yeah, I really cared about like learning that history, whether it be American, I don't know. It just was never intriguing to me. I was good at math, and that was fine. Even though I didn't really like math either, but it was something I was good at. And then when I actually traveled and I was going to these places that I read in these books, it was like, wow. Like, I just remember being in Greece, and like, everything is so old. And I was just like, how is it, like, it blew my mind being in Berlin and being like, this is where Hitler was. Like, it like blew my mind, like actually being there and seeing these different places and seeing the culture, and just like, undescribable, the feeling. It was just insane. And I feel like we lose so much of that if people don't travel, right? Because so many people are afraid. And that's, I mean, especially with traveling alone, which we had kind of talked about briefly. I just recently did a video on my YouTube about that. But when traveling alone, I think a lot of people are afraid of doing that. And when they're afraid of doing that, like for instance, we'll say, okay, we want to go and travel with our friends, right? But like now you have to, like, especially the older you get, it's harder to plan those trips with your friends. And
I
it's
know,
hard.
but I never do anymore.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm going on this trip, no matter what. If you want to join me, please come along. If you don't want to join me, I'm going anyway. I don't care.
exactly.
I just
Exactly.
feel
And
like,
that's how you have to be. Like, I
yeah,
mean, so many people, but there are people that will wait. They'll be like, "Oh, well, I have to wait for my friend to be
yeah,
available. Oh, I need to wait for this. Oh, I need to wait for all of these like 12 things to line up in a row." And especially if you're like planning with more than one person, it's that's where I got to the point like this last year, and even I have some regrets with this last year because of COVID, because I was going to take a trip in February, but then some work had come up and I was like, oh, well, I'll just wait till April. And I was going to go to Budapest. And so
um,
if I had gone in February, I would have already gone and like
I'm back by
experienced
now.
it. But yeah, so I had waited till April, or I was gonna wait till April, and then that got canceled because of COVID. But like, I wanted to go to Iceland in December of last year, and I wanted to see like the Christmas markets there and everything. And like, there was just so many things I was like trying to line up with friends, and I was like, when it wasn't working out, I was like, you know what? Forget this. Like, I'm just gonna plan my trip. If you can be there, cool. If you
Yeah,
can't, then bye. I'm just going.
that's fine.
And would
Like,
have.
and yeah, like, luckily my Scotland trip that I did recently worked out well because my friend that I actually met in New Zealand lives in Scotland, and when I ended up coming home because of COVID, she said, "You want to come on a Scotland road trip? We're going to go on one." And seeing as we can't explore anywhere else, I'm like, "Yeah, go on then." So I went along with that, and I invited my friend, my original cruise ship roommate, the one that I got along really well with. She's from the US, but she's been living in London because she moved here just before COVID to start studying. Then COVID hit, so obviously she was like, "Oh my god, hang out with me." Like, okay, we're going to Scotland. Do you want to come? She's like, "Yeah, sure." But at the same time, I'm more for. I love traveling with friends. I'm like, yeah, the more the merrier. But if if she turned around and gone, actually, I can't make it, I'd go, okay, you're lost.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I feel like so many people lose that because they don't even think of it as an option to travel alone, because they just feel like it's unattainable, that they can't do it. And I feel like that's one of the biggest like issues that trying to help people through. It's just like, it is very doable for you to do it by yourself. There's nothing that's wrong with doing it by yourself. I feel like people
It's so much more carefree. I get stressed traveling with people. I'm like, it's really
honestly.
organized. When I'm by myself, I'm like, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this. I'm by myself. I don't really care, And when you're with people, it's like you have to organize everything and figure things out, and it becomes such a mission. Like, traveling is
Absolutely.
actually really simple, but people make it so complicated because they go in these groups that just make it so confusing.
Because you have to make sure that everybody agrees with it.
Yeah.
You have to be like, oh, does everybody agree on this one thing? And then you'll be like, oh, like, do you want to do this? And then if they're like, well, not really, and you're like, oh, okay then, and like you just like settle. But like if you're by yourself, you're like, oh, I want to go do this. Like, I'm going to do this. Like, there's no
If I do travel with
conversation.
friends now, and there's something that one person wants to do and the other person doesn't, I'll just say, okay, well, we'll spend the day apart. We'll meet back up at the end, because I won't not do something because I think me and my friends or whoever I travel with now have come to an agreement, and we kind of are similar travelers. Like, most of us want to do the same things. If there is something that we want to do differently, like in Scotland, for example, my friend and her boyfriend wanted to do this hike, but it was a bit of a cloud. It was the first day of it starting to rain towards the end of the trip, and I was like, I like hiking, I love it, but I'm not the kind of person that enjoys hiking in the rain. I'm like, well, I'd rather hike if I can see the view. That's just personally just me.
Yeah.
And my other friend wasn't particularly bothered about doing it. So I was like, you guys go on the hike. We'll do our own thing for the day, and we'll meet up together afterwards, and that's fine. And that's I think once you travel for a while, once you do travel alone, you understand that level of compromise. And
Absolutely. And that's the point I was going to bring up, is like, if you've traveled alone, like if both of you have traveled alone, or both of you, I feel like it's really hard to find like a good travel buddy, because like sometimes you have to find someone you're very compatible with, or like someone that understands, like it's very you have to be very flexible in your travel. And if they're like kind of just like, this is the way or the highway type of thing, or if like, let's say they want to do something but they don't want to do it alone because they're not comfortable with doing it alone, then there's like, oh, you feel guilty if you have to like leave them, and there's just so many variables. But I feel like if you have a good travel buddy and it's like, okay, like, hey, you go do this if you're comfortable with this, I feel like you learn a lot of freedom when you start to travel alone. You really just understand what you actually care about and like how to actually do it, and you become more confident in yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I think that it's something that everyone should try.
And I think as well, following on to that, like, you also like develop, as I said, you can kind of work around each other. So for example, when I travel now with friends, and unless there's something that I really want to do, which I'll make clear before I go, I've become a lot more easygoing. So when I do travel with friends, and we're like, oh, what should we do today? I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm actually easy. Like these are the things that I'd like to do whilst I'm here. As long as we get them done, I don't really care what we, because I feel like when you do have a really regimented, unless you are there for like a day, for example, and you have to cram it all in. But when you have such a regimented plan, it becomes stressful when things don't go to plan. So I've got to the point now where I know what I want to do, and I have a rough idea of when I want to do them. We can make it work, but there's no point in getting stressed about it, because it just makes the trip not enjoyable.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest tips that I give people, is that you should definitely be flexible in your travel. I always tell people to like get a travel journal, write down a list of the things that you want to see, that you would like to see, and like if you can make them happen. Like I always wait until I get somewhere. Like I didn't even like fully map out this whole, like I'm in Colorado right now, and I didn't fully map out my whole trip until like, I mean, it's not even still fully mapped out, but I got like the first part of it like mapped out, like because I need to know like kind of where I'm gonna end up. And I just like did that in the last 2 days because I wanted to kind of get a feel for like, what do I want to see? Like maybe I'm gonna feel different, when that day actually comes. I can barely plan what I want to eat today, eat tomorrow, but let alone where. Like let alone I'm gonna plan a whole trip for a month out and be like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm gonna do to the T. And I feel like when exactly what you said, like people get stressed out. Like if you, and I feel like especially Americans tend to over plan their trips, and they'll be like, okay, we're going to do this at 9 a.m. We're going to do this at 10 a.m. We're going to do this at noon. And we're going to do, and by the end of the day, you're exhausted.
And you can't enjoy yourself because you just cram everything in. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like to see things. I like to be busy when I'm traveling. But at the same time, like for example, when I went to San Francisco back in September, I knew I wanted to go. Sorry, I booked a tour to go to the Redwoods. I booked a tour to go to Yosemite. I knew I wanted to go to like the Golden Gate Bridge and Baker Beach, and I knew I wanted to go to Alcatraz. So I booked a couple of things that I knew I wanted to do. And then I just sort of did other stuff around them. Like I went to the Painted Ladies, and I didn't even know about Lombard Street until I got there. I found that out on the day. So when I was there. But then, for example, there was an Oktoberfest by the bay also going on that I didn't know about, so I got a ticket to that. And then I met some girls in the hostel that were going to Napa Valley for the day. And they, do you want to come? I went, yeah, go on then. Because I had this spare time, and I wasn't fully crammed in every single second. It gave me room for leeway. And going to Napa Valley was such a fun experience. So.
Absolutely. And I feel like when you get to a place too, like you can ask, like I always ask locals, I'll be like, hey, like what should I be seeing? Like what should I be doing? So that,
what restaurant should I go to?
Exactly, because I feel like if I can Google things all day long, but like, I'm also going to look up, if I'm Googling, like I'm also going to find all the things that like other travelers are doing, or other people that it might be more a touristy type of thing that I'm seeing, right? Whereas if I ask locals and they're going to give me like, I know that if someone came to my hometown and they asked me what to do, like they'd be getting a good little travel itinerary to be able to go see some things, like, and like find all those like little hidden spots. And I feel like some of the best experiences come from those like last minute planning,
spontaneous things.
I mean, I did a road trip when I went to Scotland and Ireland. I did a week in each, and we drove around the perimeter of the countries, each of the countries. And when we were in Ireland, we ended up going through that's Scotland, through the Ring of Kerry and Ring of Beara, towards the southern part of Ireland. And there was, we were driving around, and we had met some people from Germany actually, and we had met them like way up in Ireland, but then we realized that we were going down the same path, so we ended up like kind of just like traveling together all the way down there. And we did some camping in our cars, like in the Ring of Kerry. But when we were traveling, we were trying to like get to see the sunset because there was like a bunch of mountains on like this little peninsula, and we were trying to get around. And when we had stopped, we were like, okay, well, we're just going to climb up this mountain really quick to like go see the sunset, because there was this big mountain in the way, or hill or whatever. So we're like, okay. So we parked the car in this parking lot, went up this hill, saw the sunset, came back down, and we're like, oh, well, we're just going to stay here for the night in this parking lot. And that parking lot ended up being one of the best places in the world to see the stars on a cloudless, moonless night, which it was a cloudless, moonless night. And it was like absolutely amazing. I saw more stars than I've ever seen in my life. I saw like 30 shooting stars in one night. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And that was just like by chance, like just happened to be in this parking lot. And it was insane. It was like,
Yeah, that happened a similar thing in when I did my road trip in the US. We were in Wyoming, and we were sort of, I think I mentioned earlier, I went from Toronto to Vancouver when I first went to Canada. We drove through the US because apparently there's more to see rather than the prairies in Canada. And when we were sort of booking Airbnbs as we were going.
yeah.
And we found this this teepee in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of the Big Horn Mountains. So like, okay, well, let's book that. And so we booked it for a couple of nights because we decided to drive from there into Yellowstone. It wasn't that far from Yellowstone, and then come back and spend another night there. And the night that we were there happened to be that that day in August when it's famous for having a meteor shower. And again, whatever, there's like a day in August, like it's quite a famous day for it being a meteor shower at most years. And we were there for that. And I'd never seen a shooting star in my life before this trip. And I literally saw like 50 in one night. I was there like, what? And we were in the middle of the mountains, staying in a teepee, like just me and my boyfriend, and then we met these two other girls there that were doing a road trip from New York to California or whatever. And it was just such a complete, one of those moments where you're just in complete awe, and you're like, what is this? What is my life? It's amazing.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're like, what is life right now? Yeah. Like, how did I even end up right here, right? And those are the experiences that you just kind of come across, like just on a whim. Like, you never know when those are going to happen. And I feel like you're even more likely to come across those when you're traveling alone too.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, I
think when you're traveling alone, you're more open to experiences. You're more open to meeting people. You're more open to just because you're not restricted to a certain group. So I love staying in hostels when I travel by myself because I meet people. Like if I'm traveling alone, even okay, maybe occasionally I'll get a nice hotel because I want to treat myself, but I'll happily stay in hostels just for the fact that I meet so many people, like so many people.
And and a lot of people in the US don't know that hostels actually exist here in the US. Like, I feel like it's just one of when you go to a hostel in the US, because I've been to a few, a lot of people a lot of them are just Europeans, like, because you guys obviously travel a lot in hostels when you guys are over there. But when you guys come here, you guys look for hostels as well. And like Americans, it's just like Airbnb and hotels. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
I met the girls in San Fran that I went to Napa with in a hostel in San Fran.
Yeah, no, and I met someone from Australia, actually. I met someone from South Korea in a hostel in Portland. I met a girl actually in a hostel here in Denver. Well, I'm not in Denver. I'm just north of Denver right now. But in Denver a year ago or a year and a half ago, last March, and me and her are probably going to be meeting up in a couple of days. Like, but we met like a year ago, and like you keep in touch with these people and like the experience.
Sure.
Like, it's just really cool. I feel like when you're traveling and you meet these different people and like it's just something different about it than like you just meeting someone on the side of the road, like, like walking down a street.
It's so different for sure. I've stayed in some really cool hostels. Like a tip for staying in hostels though is obviously take earplugs because unfortunately there's not a law against snoring in hostels. I think there should be.
There's not a law.
There should be a law personally because I think if you're going to snore that loud, you should be able to stay in a hostel room. But anyway. Take earplugs because obviously the only annoying thing is some people do snore or they don't quite have the volume button turned down. But I think hostels are just a great way to meet people for sure, and it makes travel so much cheaper as well, as long as you don't mind to sharing a room with a couple of people. Like, everyone respects their own space. Like, as long as you take a lock with you, if you're that concerned, like, I always carry like a little lock round because most hostels have lockers. I've in Hawaii I stayed in a hostel, and even though it was really sandy,
it
was so, honestly, I felt like the beach was in my hostel room. It was ridiculous, and it was really hot obviously because Hawaii is boiling and there's like 10 of us in this room like sweltering.
That's how I felt in Italy.
It was part of the experience. But yeah, I met a couple of people in the hostel there. One of them was doing a little trip up to the North Shore. I wanted to go to the North Shore. I went, can I get a ride? And I went, yeah. We just drove up together.
And that's what I love is that, when you travel when you go to different hostels and you meet these people, like they're so open to just like, I've met so many people, like the girl who I met in Portland at the hostel, and she's from South Korea. She's like, if you ever come to South Korea, let me know. I'll show you around. I'll do you this. Like
Yeah.
they're just like Australia. I've met someone from New Zealand. I've met from like people from Germany, like so many different places. All around the world. And it's like now I have friends all around the world, and like guess what, that makes your trip even more cheaper.
Yeah,
because if you're going and you're going visiting somewhere else and you can stay with them, like you don't even have to pay for a hostel. Like,
literally. It's really cool. Yeah. And again, like there's different ways you can do hostels. Like some people think of hostels and they think absolutely gross, you know, just
oh my
really
gosh,
big rooms. I stayed in some
ones.
really awesome hostels.
Oh
like I stayed in a converted jail hostel in in Ottawa in Canada. And, like it was freaky as because it was still the exact same jail. They just put like wood over the bars of the door, so they still have like the top part of the bar and the bottom part of the bar showing, but like the bit that covers your body up was wood. So like it was still the normal jail. And I booked a private room for this one just because I thought it would be cool, because the private room was literally a bed in the cell. That was it, just a bed, and then the cell door. And I was like, that sounds really cool. So I booked it, and it was actually really cool. But it literally was like just a bed and then enough room to put your suitcase, and that was it. Yeah, and I've stayed in some really funky pod hostels that have, you know, where you can like close the blinds, like, you know, close the little doors. I've also had hostels where it literally is just a really creaky bunk bed with no curtains or anything, and the closest plugs on the other side of the room, which is really annoying. But there's so many different hostels. Like everyone's different.
And you can always look up, like, it's just like looking up hotels. Like, you can look up reviews of hostels, and like people don't think about that as well.
Hostel World's really good.
Yeah, Hostel World I use for a lot of reviews and such like that. Actually, a tip is like going to Hostel World to find your hotel and then go to their direct website to get a cheaper. So that's a.
I normally if it's on Hostel World, it's on my back office.
Oh, that's true. That's right.
I earn the money back, so I'm like win-win.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then I stayed in a hostel in Germany, in Munich. Oh, I love Munich. Munich's my heart. But in Munich, there was this hostel called The Tent, and it's only open during summer, and it's literally like a huge it's like a circus tent, and they have like 50 to 100 beds in there. And,
cool.
And like you would think 50 to 100 beds, you're like, that's way too many people. Like, I don't want to be doing that. But like, it's such a cool atmosphere, like in the hostel, because like there's like probably 3 of those tents in this big park, and then they have a bonfire every single night, like a communal bonfire where everybody hangs out. They have like an outdoor like little kitchen area and stuff like that. They have hammocks all throughout the park. It was like really just a cool,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool, but very unconventional, like of a hostel. But you know, there's all these different like ways to experience it, and I think that, you know, people just don't like, they just write it off so quickly, especially Americans, unfortunately. But I'm trying to change that.
Yeah, I think until you experience it, I mean, it's not for everyone for sure, but until you experience it, and you experience it in a way that you experience it in a way that you know it's not going to be luxury. I mean, sometimes I've had some great nights sleeping in hostels, but as long as you go there knowing that it's not going to be luxury, but as long as you're open to it, and you just let go of any like resistance towards sharing a room with somebody or whatever, you actually have such a good time, because you just sort of stop caring. Like you don't need to have all these fancy gadgets. Like you can literally survive off the basic necessities.
But when you're traveling too, like you don't even spend all the time in the hotel. Like if you're traveling, right, you're not spending an entirety, like your whole trip. The whole point of you going to wherever you're going isn't to check out this hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, some trips, like, you know, those destination places, like in the where is that? Yeah, like in like those Fiji and stuff like that. Like, okay, that makes sense. Like you obviously want to, but if you are like just going to a new country or something like that, like you're going to be out and about so much, and then you're just going to come back to the hostel just to sleep.
Yeah, as long as I've got a bed to sleep in, I'm sleeping in a box. I don't mind, as long as I've got a bed or somewhere.
A bed, a place for me to go to the bathroom, a shower. Like I'm good, you know.
That's why I didn't even mind Scotland, because even though we didn't shower for like 5 days, I was in all the lakes, and I was just, you know, having a wash in the lake. It was fun.
Yeah, no, exactly. Oh God, the beautiful lakes over there and
No,
the fairy pools when I went to Isle of Skye over there. Oh gosh, just so
oh,
gorgeous.
no, it's so cool.
Uh, so, and I do want to give a shout out to you as well because you are a travel agent, right?
I am, yeah.
So, how do like what do you specialize in a specific type of travel
No,
or
so well, because I've done a lot of adventure travel myself, and obviously I've just been on a cruise. I do know a lot more about that. Compared to luxury travel, for example. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm still qualified in luxury travel, and because when I've become an agent, we get access to hundreds of courses as part of becoming an agent.
yeah,
Being in luxury travel, being in adventure travel, being in skiing, whatever I decide to do a course on, I can really easily do a course. But I, in terms of my personal experience, definitely adventure travel and definitely cruising as well.
cruising. Very nice. Well, so people can follow you obviously on Instagram right here,
Yeah.
wanderlustbex95. And then here's your email address as well for people to be able to reach out to you. Is there any other way for them to reach out to you, or are those just the best ways?
That's probably the best ways. I mean, I do have Facebook as well, but I post anything that I post on Instagram goes on Facebook. So Instagram's probably the easiest way to follow my journey. And Instagram stories I think are a lot more effective on Instagram than they are on Facebook. And I love a story. Like you'll always see me on this every day. I'm chatting to the camera about something. Doesn't know what I'm
Yeah, no,
talking about.
I love the Instagram stories too as well. When
Yeah,
I have service, and sometimes I'm just like wait, like I save them all until I can post them
yeah.
later.
And
But I
everyone's like, "Are you still in Scotland?" I was like, "Oh no, I left 2 weeks ago, but I just didn't have any service. I'm posting now."
well, that's how it was like when I was up in the Rocky Mountains up here in Colorado. Like I was like, I don't have service. I'm just gonna post these later.
Yeah.
like, but yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, if anybody who's watching, if they want to reach out to you, I love your Instagram page. I think it's awesome. And again, that's how we met. So it's really cool
I
that
think as I was saying earlier, there's such a big community of travelers on Instagram.
there
Like
is.
I've met so many people that I'm now actually really good friends with, and I would happily travel with them just from
Yeah.
Instagram and just from them being a traveler, them engaging in my posts, and asking me how a trip was, me asking them how a trip was,
Mhm.
them giving me recommendations to somewhere, like whatever it may be. There's such a good community of travelers that all support each other, and and
Yeah.
I think my page has grown so much in the past year just from me, connecting with and reaching out to other travelers and then, reciprocating it, and then, us then building like an online friendship, basically.
Absolutely. No. And I've made so many friends too. And it's like, it's crazy to think that like that can like that's the world we live in now where it's so connected and we
Yeah,
can just meet people like that have similar interests just by looking up a hashtag.
literally.
I can look up a hashtag and find a million and one people that have the same interest that I do in that one thing.
I know,
It's
it's so good.
insane.
Or like, oh, I want to go to Bali next week. I'll look at the hashtag Bali, see who's been there, see where they've been, take some ideas. I'll go there myself.
Exactly. No. And I've gotten some good advice as well from the trip, just for this trip that I'm about to go on tomorrow,
Yeah.
leaving through
And
Utah.
I
And
really like seeing people's I like how Instagram has now got like IGTV and the reels and stuff, and they're making it more
yeah,
like a channel like YouTube, because then everything's on one platform rather than going to YouTube to watch a vlog. You can watch it on Instagram now as well.
yeah, absolutely. They have the whole IG, and then the Reels is like TikTok.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. It's such an all round. I just love Instagram. I think it's great. I think it's a really cool platform, especially for travelers.
absolutely, yeah. And I'm glad that we were able to connect and do this. I think that there was a lot of valuable stuff that we talked about today. If anybody has that wanderlust out there to go and travel and just travel, but also like to live abroad, like because I see that you obviously just kind of picked up and went and just did
Yeah,
it.
I think living abroad gives you. I mean, doing abroad traveling is fantastic, and I absolutely love traveling. Um, but living abroad gives you a different experience, because you actually get to experience life in that place. Like when you travel, sometimes you just see the best bits, or you just see the snippets. But when you actually live there for a prolonged period of time, and you get a job there, and you actually experience what it's, because, like, for example, living in Canada, I didn't have the best job in the world. To start with, I was just a cleaner, and then I worked in a bakery, which actually ended up being awesome because I met some amazing friends there. I mean, I got really fat, but it's fine because whatever. I eat like brownies for breakfast, but it was a fun job. But you get to actually experience life living and working somewhere, and then compared to your home country, rather than just traveling, seeing it in the fun side of it, and then coming back home to your because sometimes I think when you travel, you can you start to think that your home country may be a bit boring or maybe a bit because that's where you work, that's where you put your you put your effort in, and then you go somewhere else, you have a really amazing 2 weeks, and then you go home and you're like, oh, I'm back to work. So you put a negative stigma around your home country. But when you move to another country, you get to experience life working there as well. Yeah, and I think that's why I love Canada, because even though going to work every day I was a bit like, oh, because that's why I now work online, because I like to have the freedom rather than having to go to work every day and have that like, oh, I've got to get up in the morning to go to work kind of feeling that you get from most jobs. I still felt like the actual work-life balance was way better in Canada, just because there's so much more to do, there's so much more freedom, and I could compare it to the UK because I'd actually experienced the whole thing rather than just the fun side of visiting.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that you bring up a great point too. I think that just doing what you're passionate about is really important. And I mean, I think that a lot of people, might just go to doing jobs just because of like the money it might bring them and such. But as you see, you're trying to like build your online business and such like that so that you can be able to have that freedom to travel more. And like, I'm also doing the same thing. And it's like, finding that thing that you really are just passionate about. And I feel like it's also easier to find that when you're traveling and like when you're trying to find yourself while traveling.
And you open up more ideas, and you realize what actually is possible, because you meet people that are already doing what you want to do, and you're like, well, if you can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. No, it's such an eye-opening thing. I recommend it for anybody. So I think that that's awesome that you've so you've lived in a bunch of different atmospheres where you've learned something, and I'm sure you took so many things from each experience and like added them to your life, and like
just shaped me the person now.
Yeah. And you become a whole different person, which isn't bad. Like, I mean, the one thing that I say all the time is that the one thing in life that is consistent is change.
And it's good. One thing that's good, change is good. Like when people say that when people go, oh, you've changed, like it's a bad thing, and I'm like, I'm glad that I've changed. Like I hope I've changed. Why have you not? Like, why have you not changed? If you're not changing and growing, then you're basically, it sounds morbid, but you're basically dying and going backwards. And it's all about changing and growing and learning and moving forward.
If you were the same person, if you've lived 60 years on this earth and you're the same person from when, you were in your 20s or whatever, then like you haven't grown as a person. You haven't grown and experienced things. And, that's one of the other big things that I tell people, like when when you're traveling, is that, life isn't guaranteed, and we're not guaranteed these these moments in our lives, and like we really should be living these moments like we could be dying tomorrow. But also that if these experiences that we are experiencing, like, are experiences that we're going to hold with us the entire rest of our lives. Like so many people like having these things, and things are great, whatever it might be, like it's good to have some things if it's something that you really enjoy or whatever. But I can tell you right now, like 3 years ago, I can't tell you what I got for Christmas, let alone even maybe last year. But I can tell you about the trip I took 3 years ago. I can tell you about the things I did on all of these trips in the past, my whole life. I can tell you about those.
Objects are temporary, whereas memories are permanent.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like that's one of the biggest things for people to like keep in mind too, is like these experiences are adding to your life and adding to your experience and your like perception of the whole world. Because the more places that you see, the better well-rounded idea that you're going to get of the world and better understanding of people all around.
And the more, I think as well, the more you want to care for it. Like my eyes have been open so much to obviously the impact we're having on the world, global warming, and just everything since I've been traveling, and since I've seen what unfortunately some people do what mess some people do leave the world in. It's like I've become vegetarian. Like there's a lot of things that I've changed about myself to help make a positive impact on the world, because I've grown this complete love for the world that without traveling I don't think I ever would have I ever would have developed. And when I'm 80 years old and I look back now, I can go, I did the things I wanted to do. I went out there and I did it. I didn't really think about the how. I just thought I have to go do this. Like I have to go make it happen.
Yeah.
And I can figure it out as I go along. And I took the step. I figured it out. I took one step at a time. And I just did different places, saw these different things, and I can look back on my life and be like, yeah, cool. I did all these cool things, rather than, yeah, I bought a couple of things and I stayed in the same place. I mean, everyone's different, but for me, it's just it's like nothing. It's like nothing you've ever experienced in your life, and nothing you ever will experience. Like travel is like on a whole different, complete level to anything else, I feel.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And like, that's why I just want to help inspire and educate people on how to travel. Like, I feel like so many people find it.
How to travel sustainably as well. That's one thing I'm really passionate about, is how to travel in a sustainable, or like how to leave the world in the same way that you found it. Because again, I don't want to promote travel to people that aren't even going to look after the world. Like if you're going to leave the world in a mess and stay at home, like if you're going to travel the world, then travel the world respectfully, because it angers me to see some of the mess that people do leave.
Absolutely. So when you travel, like, you should always be just taking those memories with you and leaving nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't see how people can actually be that disrespectful sometimes, because the world is literally so incredible. How could you want to put it in a bad
position? They haven't seen enough of it yet. They haven't seen enough to to just to really appreciate it, and see what's out there. And why should if you've only ever seen where you've lived, like I know here in the US there's a lot of people that have never left their hometown, never left their state. I mean, how would they know what's out there other than, I mean, you can see things on the internet all day long, right? But it doesn't really feel real until you see it.
It doesn't give you that feeling, does it? It doesn't give you that like breath where your breath is taken away and you're there, like like you can only get that by being somewhere.
Absolutely. And that's like why I just, encouraging people to travel. The more that they see, that I think the more that they'll appreciate just in general.
Well, hopefully.
So hopefully. That's all we can hope. Well, thank you.
Pack your litter away. If you take litter, pack it away.
Yep, absolutely. Everything you bring, you take with you. Is there any last words that you have to say anybody? Maybe someone who's looking to like live abroad for the first time, or just in general?
Literally, like, just do it. Like Nike couldn't have got it more spot on. Just do it. Like literally, what have you got to lose? If you move somewhere and you really hate it, go home. It doesn't matter. You've given it a try. But if you never do it, you'll never know. And that's the thing I always say to someone. Like if you really go with a cruise ship, I tried it. I didn't like it. I left.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I wasn't forced to stay there. Like just give it a try, because you really don't know what you're capable of until you push yourself out your comfort zone. If you live in your comfort zone, that's basically where your dreams go to die. So it's basically where your comfort zone is there. It's designed. We still live as if we're from the cavemen. Like we've got this comfort zone of fear, because when we live in caves, leaving that cave was danger. We could have got eaten by lions. We could have been attacked. But being in that cave, the only way in was the only way out. Like you had that one exit, so you knew you were safe.
Yeah.
Our brains have only developed 2% since we were cavemen. So we've still got a lot of fear and a lot of resistance, and we're in this comfort zone because our brains still think we're living like cavemen. But if you walk outside now, we're probably not going to get eaten by a lion. I think we're going to be okay. So like unfortunately, our brains haven't adapted, to the level that our lives have adapted that quickly. So we still have these high resistance and these high, these limiting comfort zones. But it's going to be scary when you first do it. But as soon as you push past it, like you'll just literally open this massive potential, and you'll realize what you actually can do. So you just have to do it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Just go and do it, and don't wait any longer, because tomorrow's not guaranteed.
There we go. Exactly.
You can't wait your whole life. And I feel like there's a lot of people during this whole time with COVID. I've had so many people be like, oh, well, I was finally going to do this trip. And I've been waiting for years to do it, and I was going to do it, but then COVID happened. And it's like, okay, well, what does that tell you? What is it? Maybe you should have done it a year ago, or 2 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. Maybe you shouldn't have waited until this year to do it, and then your plans got ruined by COVID. Like, no, you've been ruining your plans.
Yeah, I know. People are very quick to blame other circumstances rather than blaming themselves. But when you really look at it, your life is your fault. The situation you're in your life is because of the decisions you've made in your life that you've personally made. Only you can make these decisions. So people always blame other people, but actually, they should blame themselves.
Absolutely, self-responsibility.
Yeah,
and you can make anything happen. So if you set your mind to something, you'll make it happen no matter what.
And I talk about a lot about that on my Insta. Like my Insta's mainly travel, but a lot on mindset as well. A lot on how travel can help you overcome these mindset blocks and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, my Instagram talks a lot about both sides of that, travel and mindset, which I'm really passionate about both.
Awesome. Well, for people to be able to find you on Instagram, they can follow you at wanderlustbex95. So make sure you guys go and follow her. She has an awesome Instagram page, and it's honestly been a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you, Bex.
I feel like I'm just looking at the time now. I'm like, oh my goodness, we've just been going.
Yeah. No, it kind of just goes. It has a mind of its own, it's just conversation. But that's what happens when, great conversations had. So if you guys are joining for the first time now, you guys can always watch this replay on my YouTube channel, which you can find me on YouTube at The Traveling Lucy. And you can also find me on Instagram at The Traveling Lucy, where you can find the links and everything in the description of this video as well. So I highly recommend going and listening to our whole conversation, an interview style, because it was an awesome conversation, and I'm glad that I had Bex on today. And thank you again for coming on. And for all of you guys who are watching, I do go live every Tuesday at 7. Well, depends on the time, depending on who I'm talking with. Today we started a little bit early. Usually it's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
I would have been in bed by then.
Yeah. Well, I have to make it, flexible for those who are in other countries all over the world. But you guys are welcome to visit me or catch another live every Tuesday for my Travel Tip Tuesday. So thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Bex, again for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. It has been a pleasure. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. So thanks, Bex.
Bye.
Bye.